Hello and welcome to TrishRockTV, interviews with people on purpose, loving life. Today we have the amazing Leigh Rorke as our special guest. Leigh is a transformational life coach, a writer and facilitator who works with you to create your soul-aligned life and to live your purpose, which in turn brings more meaning, peace, and effortless decision-making. Trained as a life coach, kinesiologist, and occupational therapist, she has vast experience in health settings, corporate life, as well as 10 years as a kinesiologist and coach in stress management, small business, and leadership. Of a friend, which was the trigger to dropping the push and hustle energy in her coaching business and life. She created a living experiment, choosing to make life decisions from a soul-aligned place. This way of living has brought Leigh deeper meaning, ease, and freedom, and prompted her to begin teaching the approach to others as a way to a more meaningful success, purpose, and joy. Leigh brings a grounded approach to spirituality by giving her clients practical tools to transform their life and live their purpose. She'll show you how to connect deeply with your soul and your truth, moving beyond listening to your intuition to living according to your soul's guidance to create the deepest desires. As you do so and begin to make the biggest impact you can as a soul in assisting others by the sharing of your gifts. I'm very excited to welcome you, Leigh, to the show. How are you?
Yeah, thanks, Trish. Thanks so much for having me tonight. I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Yeah, I'm great.
Oh, thank you. Me too. And Leigh, we've been friends for quite some time now, and you really do extraordinary work in this world, and it's just getting more and more needed. How did it all start for you, Leigh? I know you had the death of your friend, but is this something that's come from childhood, all of these skills that you have?
Look, not particularly. I'm not your normal kind of psychic story of having all the psychic experiences and then shutting it down. I was actually really born atheist, I believe. Like, I had a non-believer stance from a young age. And then something shifted to me. I had a car accident when I was 19, and the car rolled a few times, and I was fine. The car was fine. I probably couldn't have been fine. Well, the car was smashed on the opposite side of me.
Wow.
And when it was flipping, I had that kind of spiritual experience people talk about where they go, oh, I could die, or I could end up in a wheelchair, or they were kind of my options. But I actually felt the energy of being held, and I had this intuitive perception at the time that that it was my grandmother, who I never met, who passed before I was born. So I kind of started my intuitive spiritual journey and me being open to something else, which is pretty kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Before that, I was pretty straight down the line.
And then, was that all like just in a split second as you were rolling?
Pretty like the sense of it was as I was rolling, and then the knowing of who it was came after, just as a knowing.
Okay.
And kind of like, I have seen things and I do hear things at times now with my intuition, but my greatest strength has always just been that knowing. So it was just the knowing. And then after that, I just started exploring pretty much everything I could. I did Reiki as like a 21-year-old, and then I was studying occupational therapy, and I was drawn to that because I talked about it being a holistic health profession. I could argue that, but in many ways it's a lot more of a holistic approach than other health professions, in that we used to look at everybody, your whole role as a person, and you as a whole being, and how you interact with the world and what roles you play, and the use of education. That could be hobbies or roles or community involvement, as well as jobs, to get back to health. So I was really interested in that, but once I got there, I was like, oh, that's not enough. So I started just doing extra bits of study, spiritual stuff, energy work, and then I did some new grad jobs, and then stumbled probably in my mid-20s on physiology. And yeah, so and studied that intensely. And then when I got to probably a few years down the track, I was probably pregnant with my eldest, who's now 13. I opened my own occupational therapy because I worked in mental health business.
Yep.
I also did kinesiology, which is a bit of an unusual combination. In my,
yes. And I think 13 years ago, kinesiology was probably a choice that not many people were doing either.
Yeah, and look, it was really interesting because I had a business in Paddington in Brisbane, and I ended up kind of just having a steady clientele of stress executives, and they weren't necessarily people that you think might come to a kinesiologist, but I think a lot of them had, just through different avenues, heard about kinesiology. It was definitely gathering momentum. I think at that time it was really kind of the exciting, maybe new modality. So from that perspective, but what I love about kinesiology is I don't know how people look at muscle tests, but I love that no matter what skills you've got, you can bring that into it. So if you're a naturopath, you can use muscle testing to bring that in. So I studied lots of different stuff, but over time I worked out that my genius wasn't so much physical illness, and my interest wasn't so much physical illness, it was how the emotions and the spirit were showing up in the physical stuff in the body, but also in mental health disorders or in relationship dysfunction or in other things. And then I kept kind of studying the occupational therapy stuff alongside. I worked in occupational rehabilitation for ages, so I kind of had that competition with my and because I've always felt like I bridged both those worlds. The competitive and the straight, and kind of going, why are these worlds different in a way?
Yeah.
And getting frustrated at, I guess, the extreme ignorance that goes in sometimes, but particularly in the Western medical model, which just seems to refuse to acknowledge the obvious to me. So from that perspective, I kind of developed this merging, and then probably would have been, oh goodness, 8 or 9 years ago I started having life coaching as well. I was like, oh, that's not enough. Because I found coaching my clients, I didn't want them to just be passive recipients lying on a massage table receiving kinesiology from me. So I asked them questions, and I found myself coaching anyway. So I thought, maybe I'll get a qualification for that. So and I guess that's why. I guess that's what I admire about myself. I just kept pursuing what I really was interested in or passionate about, and kept being willing to change or hop or learn or grow and move into different areas. And so
But you incorporated what you'd already learned into the new. So some people get to that point where they're like, this isn't really interesting for me anymore, I need to learn something else, and they drop it all together. But whatever you're learning, if it's about, obviously if it's not about the same thing, it's a bit hard, but everything you're learning was to help people.
In hindsight, I look back and I go, oh, that was the perfect strange path I could have taken. Like even my occupational therapy jobs, I kind of I didn't like my boss there, so I jumped into health, and then, really haphazard in a way. The early person in their early 20s might do. But it was still going, well, I like this about that job, but I don't like this. And so I kind of took my decisions that way. So I don't think anything's wasted. I mean, I've certainly forgotten a lot of what I learned, honestly, because I've learned so much. I've got the lessons or the foundational concepts to what I've learned. So they come through in everything I do. Like, if somebody says, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. It's occupational therapy, it's mindfulness, it's coaching, it's kinesiology, it's energy, stuff. It's whatever comes into the room, essentially, whatever is needed.
Whatever is needed. And when you say that nothing's ever wasted, it's absolutely true. And I think so many people can, this is obviously what you help people with as well, so many people can fall into that, downward depression dive of, I've spent all those years and it's wasted, but nothing's ever wasted. And I think it's great that you're bringing it all together. And really that's you going with your intuitive knowing of what's needed at the time, because as you and I both know, not every therapy works on every person.
No.
So you've got to have a bit of a, what does this person need right now, really?
Yeah, and that is quite an intuitive approach, and I could probably go back and explain why potentially that worked for that person because of the way they think and their personality and their previous trauma or whatever. But yeah, it is quite intuitive. And it's just the numbers. I mean, you and I both, Trish, have been seeing people for a long time. It's just those hours, building up those hours and that intuition. But I think just really trusting, being more connected to my soul and trusting what I am getting really helps.
Yeah.
But I guess, where I come from is that I'm giving people a solid basis. If they want me to explain it, I can. I can give them the information they need as well.
And some people do need that, don't they? Because everybody's got different personality types. So ultimately, I mean, you've put your work together in that phrase of living a soul-aligned life.
Yeah.
And that really is the outcome that you're working towards with your client. So whatever that is, whether it's a health issue, a mental issue, a block, a belief, you can bring all of those in to help that person.
Yeah, I guess where that comes from, Trish, I mean, it wouldn't matter if I'm working with someone with trauma. We might work just on their trauma stuff for a while, but in bringing in that connecting to the soul type of concept or tools when the person's ready for it, depends on what level they're at. I mean, I've got clients that have really been doing the spiritual work for a long time and clients that haven't. I actually enjoy that variety.
Yes.
But when they're, because, for me, all of the answers come from there. And it doesn't matter what you want to call it. If you're Christian, call it God. If you want to call it source or universe, or it doesn't make any difference to me. I just work with whatever people's beliefs are. But, whether you call it the soul or source or the soul connected to source, doesn't really matter. The greater connected you are to it, the more at peace you are with what happens to you for a start, and the more ability you have to trust, follow that intuition, listen to what's right for you, and make decisions from that space, which is not necessarily a rational space. Some of the best decisions I've made in my life, I'm sure you'd probably say the same, just logically made no sense at all.
That's what I say to people. Sometimes you've just got to go with the crazy answer. I'm not doing that because your logic is not going to get you where you need to go.
Yeah. Logical, and we have so much programming, as you would know, about what we should do and what we should be and who we should be when we grow up, and that comes from our family, it comes from society. And so we've got to peel all of that away to really work out who we are and what we want. And that's a process in of itself, particularly
it is, and getting back to that self-trust, and that we had that self-trust when we were born, but it slowly gets domesticated out of us as we grow. And so you said that you had a life-changing event when one of your friends passed away. Was this when you were in corporate life, or you had a really full-on?
No, I was doing this work, but I think I'm a single parent, and I think when I became a single parent, I went into I've got to be a provider, a man and a woman, I've got to be both. Which in some ways is really true, but I went into the provider stress that a lot of men experience. Everything was on my shoulders. And so with that stress, there's a lot of push energy in that. There's a lot of, it takes a lot of energy to go out there and hunt, to provide. And
Absolutely.
I'm not really like that. I'm quite a feminine person by nature. I'm quite an energetically sensitive person. I need a lot of rest. And so I was actually really pushing myself. And then when he died, he was a soulmate. We'd actually been in a relationship that we'd stayed friends. When he died, there was just a part of me that didn't have the energy because of the grief to make the push anymore. So I went, and all the logic, they're coming from the logical with my decision making, because I just, your brain can kind of blank out. I think a lot of people would be experiencing that at the moment with people. I'm sure we'll talk about this with the fear, but the prefrontal lobe, the OT in me, it actually switches off when we're under stress. So I didn't really have the logical ability. So I just went, okay, I've been practicing playing this kind of concept of connecting to soul, connecting to earth, and just going into the heart and feeling expanded or contracted, feeling light or feeling heavy, and making my decisions from that place.
Yeah.
I just went, I'm going to try it as an experiment. I literally had that awareness or that thought. I'm going to try it for like a month while I'm grieving, while I don't have the energy. And it just became my way of being. Now, that doesn't mean I don't sometimes get stuck in my head or make decisions in my headspace. But, increasingly over time, as I connect more and more to a soul and to soul, that process is more automatic. I see it almost like the fusion of my soul into my 3D physical being. So that becomes more easy to decide what's right for me and what's not. And sometimes that truth isn't what you want to hear.
Yeah, that's true, and often it does take some traumatic experience for people to start getting into that way of life too, doesn't it? Which is a shame. It'd be nice if we could do it without the trauma, but sometimes it takes that to actually get into that really living life more for the moment rather than just doing. And so
I find that I do my best work with clients when they're in that just in the breakdown or coming out of the breakdown, because they've been maintaining that whatever it is, facade, push energy, whatever it is for them, or a lie in terms of their relationship, whatever it is, and then the crisis creates the awareness. And it also creates just giving themselves permission to be in a space with perceptions of being in a healing phase. Like I think sometimes it's phases in our life where our purpose is really primarily to heal. When they're in the healing phase, then they can just allow themselves to be in that being more, and that's a more connected space. The more silence and space you create, the more connectedness you create. So I see a lot of spiritual growth come out of those crises.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that was really life-changing for you, and now, that's something you can't learn from a book, right? So you really have, you can, but you really have to feel it. And so as well as knowing all of the practical stuff, and you've got a lot of practical tools, you really bring people down to earth and really give them practical life skills. But apart from that, you've also been through some of these things. So you've actually got the empathy and you've actually lived it. So you know how they're feeling. And that makes a big difference to other people's healing, I believe.
Yeah, look, I think you've got to have some life experience with some challenges. For me, I've had a lot of my clients, especially the ones that come to me for trauma, because I do it's a psychological therapy that you can get on your mental health care plan, but it's highly effective. So when people come for that, they come with trauma. A lot of those clients have experienced so much more trauma than me, but because I've had a taste of what they've experienced, whether that's a loss or I definitely believe it helps me connect. They feel heard and understood, and also, validated, because one of the concepts I'm passionate about is that in our culture we tend to try and shut down emotions that don't fit our kind of perception of what happiness looks like.
Yeah.
So if as a therapist, and I think this is what a lot of therapists don't really get, is that if I am not comfortable with something in myself, then I actually can't allow that in someone else, or I'll tend to shut it down, judge it, or it won't come up in the room because I haven't allowed it in me. So I won't allow it in there. Yeah. And I think we do this with other relationships as well. And I guess all I can say, Trish, is my life hasn't been as terrible as many of my clients, but I've certainly experienced every single emotion in that. I've allowed space for it. And,
you do have the space, and that's interesting about the oneness, because that's true in every area of life, isn't it? We can't really give people a really authentic space if we're not giving our own self that space to deal with that too. Yeah. And so Leigh,
the clients will start to mirror it to you. You'll just get like 8 clients in a row with that same.
I get that with readings. I get the same message all day, and I'm like, okay, I get it.
Such a good bonus.
Send me something else. Oh dear. So you wrote a book.
Yeah.
Called Your Soul Aligned Life and
Soul Truth. So this is it here.
Yep.
Unstuck, live your truth, awaken your power. I just wanted a really simple kind of punchy cover.
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes through many of your experiences and many of your practical tips on how people can work through some of their stuff.
Yeah, and look, it touches on the things that I think are really important. Like, there's no point being spiritually connected if we're not aware of what our programs are and how they're affecting us. So that's the first part. The second part's really about getting to know the different parts of yourself. I do a lot of work with the different parts of self, whether that's the inner critic or the inner child or the shadow side. And then it also talks about how your relationship to your body, how the body stores trauma is something that I work a lot with. And then the third section is really that connecting to soul. What does that look, sound like?
Yeah.
And how do you begin to do that more and more in your life? And some of that's really practical. You would be sharing a lot with your clients, Trish, like listening to the signs and the symbols and the and doing. I give away a meditation that's just it's a simple connecting to soul and to earth and letting those energies align. And so it's kind of, and then listening to really kind of, rather than the body awareness is probably a reasonable part of this book too, just being aware that if I just sit with myself, the different parts of self or the different emotions will come, and just allowing that space and allowing that context so that we can create greater integration. Because what happens when somebody is in a trauma, it's almost a split off of part of self. And that can get knocked away. And when that's knocked away, we've got these different parts at odds with each other, sometimes fighting each other. Control of the wheel.
Yeah.
And then that can take us out of our inner adult or our wise self or our soul connected self, whichever way you want to look at it. So my goal is to get people back to their adult self, back to their soul connected self, back to their inner wisdom. So that the book touches on all that, and it gives really kind of introductory, and it's not very thick, because what I find is people don't read the book from start to finish very often.
You can just open that one up and read bits of it.
Yeah. It's also the kind of book you could read on an aeroplane flight.
Perfect.
It's it's not. And I kept it short on purpose. My next book is actually Soul Purpose. It's bigger, but this one I just wanted to be short, sharp, to the point, with some tools. Off you go, and
And it's interesting that you're saying about people starting to wake up to, you know, maybe there's some truth in what their body is saying to them. And I just find that such a thrill when I have clients that wake up to that, because we've really been taught to be disconnected from all of that. And when you come back into that and you see people starting to get it, it's really joyful. It's like, wow, you're trusting yourself now, you're trusting your body now, you know, you're seeing something going on in the body now. You know that inner child is having a fight with this one, or it's a disconnected part of you that really is wanting to be healed, and it really does show up in the body. So it gives people even more empowerment, I think, if they can look after their own health as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, books like Body is the Barometer of the Soul and that sort of thing, sometimes they've got a skeptical client in the room and they've got a shoulder or whatever. I'll just open up to the book and read it, and I'll go, is that true for you? And they go, oh, like a light bulb goes off.
I've got that book, and yes, it can be very to the point.
Accurate. And so, you know, I think that concept, which for some reason it was really obvious to me that the body connected to the emotions and and that specific things were metaphors. And of course, it doesn't mean that if you've got a particular illness, you're any worse than anybody else. It's just on your soul path, what your body's trying to do at that time. And quite often, the relationship people have to their body is really unhealthy. Like they'll be angry at their shoulder or their back if it's hurting, rather than going, oh, why are you hurting? Like, let's have face with that and have a conversation. They'll be, you know, shaming or blaming or angry. That's not going to help them. So, you know.
It's interesting, isn't it? My journey with all of that started, I had a very hypochondriac mother, but she wasn't doing anything deliberately. She just was loving us a lot. And anyway, I didn't like it. So I just didn't get sick. And then I had a business. I bought my first business at about 24 and was always booked out. And it was one-to-one work. And if I was sick, there was no one to take those clients, even though I had staff. We were all booked out, and I was always booked out 6 months ahead. So it's like I didn't have a choice. I just don't get sick, right? It's just not something that I believe in. And so I kind of had those beliefs. But then over the years, I'm like, wow, everybody's so interesting. You know, there's so many different people saying and relating to their body and their health so differently. And then I think it was Louise Hay book that I got back in 2007 or 8 or something, and it all just made sense. And I'm like, it was something like I just felt like I knew it, and it sounds like you had that knowing as well, and it's just
it was obvious because I mean I remember working in a hospice, and I'd started studying, you know, Reiki and things like that. And I would be in a hospice and I'd look at all women with breast cancer and I'd go, they're all over-giving, over-caring kind of people. And then, you know, that one of the most foulest personalities I met, he had a fungating tumor on his tongue that stunk the whole room out. Like, it was just so because he had a foul mouth, literally. I heard him abuse his wife and his sister. Wow. And so for me, it was just so obvious working in those hospitals. All the guys on the heart attack, they were all stress heads, type A's, got to work hard. When I say all, in general, you know, when you looked at it, there was similar issues with similar health, not the same, but similar. And to me, it was just obvious. And then when I read Louise Hay's book, I probably would have been working at the hospice, actually, I think when I first read it. And then I was like, oh.
You would have been watching everyone then going, oh.
And I remember having an argument with the social worker about Louise Hay's work because she was like, it shames people, it blames people for having their illness. And I was like, no, that's not the point. The point is the body's trying to talk to you. And you know, that's a useful tool to tap into.
It is, absolutely. So, I bring it up every now and again with clients, but you have to kind of pick and choose as well, because some people are not in the frame of mind to accept what you're about to say to them. So you do have to kind of keep that in mind. But for people who are ready to receive that, they're so grateful for the insight, and it helps them move to the next step. Yeah. So
yeah, and that's what I prefer in the days, the practices where I just get them to talk to their back or their shoulder, and then because I'm saying it, that they're getting there themselves. And with kinesiology, we used to just muscle test it. It'd be like, and I still sometimes it'd be like, oh, emotions coming up, this emotion relates to that trauma back and forth, relates to this, and suddenly all the pieces of the puzzle come together, and the body heals itself from the position.
Yes.
Kinesiology. You just give. Sometimes you get some aiding energetic support, but basically all that's doing is helping the body heal itself. So those concepts really, kinesiology gave me so many gifts, and I still sit there while the clients are talking to me doing this. And
it's powerful.
Really powerful. So we just, I don't know, I could talk about this stuff all night, Trish. So fun.
Yeah, I can see your passion on it, and as I said, we've known each other for quite a few years now, and your passion never wanes, and that's why I love having people like yourself on the show, because you really are on purpose and passionate about what you do, and that's so wonderful. So there's a lot of different types of trauma that people are experiencing right now through what we've been going through. Some people think trauma is, car accident, really bad illness, whatever. But losing a job is trauma as well, and several other things that are kind of going on at the moment. So what would be some advice, like, for people listening, if they're feeling something's off but they just can't pin it, or if they are feeling that trauma of the current circumstance, what would you suggest that they, apart from coming and seeing someone to get some help,
seeing someone can be really important, and whether that's just and if it's not a professional, and some people might just need to really be heard through that time. There's studies done that if you get somebody soon after trauma and you let them talk about it, you really listen to them, they're less likely to end up with ongoing trauma effects. So talking is really an important part.
So they need to ask for help. They need to put their hand up and say, I need some help.
Ask for help. And I think particularly for, I'm going to stereotype here, but particularly for men, that can be really difficult. And I'm really concerned with what's happened and also what's coming with the suicide rate, because a lot of people pin their identity to their work, and then when they lose their work, or they lose their ability to be that provider that I was talking about when that role I went into, all their self-worth and their confidence is linked to that, because their identity is, and then that collapses. So I guess my advice there is really, that's a spiritual growth journey, because it's about loving yourself, whether or not you're making money or you're getting that external validation of being told you're doing a good job every day. A lot of women relate to that with postnatal depression quite often when they have their first baby. Suddenly not told every day you're doing a good job by someone. So it's a process of bringing that validation internal and going, actually, you know what, I'm still a good person, I've done my best, this is not my fault. And really processing that and giving yourself that time to feel your emotions. I work a lot with people around how to feel cleanly, like without adding the big story of I'm not good enough or whatever it is, to add fuel to the fire of your emotions. If you've lost a job or you've had a trauma, if there's a loss, there's a grieving process, and you can't bypass that. Like, you've actually got to go through it. Now, you can certainly make it worse by, like I said, adding the negative stories on top, or going into a big depressive spiral, and you might be lucky if you're doing that, because sometimes that can be almost impossible to break on your own. But if you're really going down in that spiral, it's about going, actually, it's normal to feel angry, it's normal to be in denial, it's normal to feel shocked, it's normal to feel sad. And then I think just generally there's a massive atmosphere of fear in the world at the moment.
Oh,
And
definitely. And we're all soaking that in.
We're soaking it in, and as much as you can disconnect from that, the better. You know, turn off mainstream media. Don't go on Facebook if it's triggering you. You know, just honor yourself and bring it back to the essentials. I think one of the big things that the government really underestimated, and I got so angry about it, I did have some verbal posts on Facebook about it, is that people need people. People need connection, and actually need face-to-face connection to feel safe and to feel okay. And, you know, babies who are not touched or live without connection in orphanages, they don't develop, they die. Now,
there's been a lot of studies on that.
We're pushing ourselves into really physical or mental unhealth if we don't stay connected. So my encouragement to people is to not hide away with their shame of maybe about losing their job, but actually increasingly connect to people. So they're just the kind of basics. And then when you're talking about shifting into a new place in terms of life purpose, like seeing sometimes what you've lost, I found in times when things have been taken away from me, sometimes, not all times, but sometimes I actually hadn't really been that happy in the job anyway. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I've lost the job, or there's no more contract work in that, or whatever it was. And then I've gone, oh, actually, I haven't really wanted to be here anyway. And then seeing the opportunity that comes from the change and the transition.
Because there's always opportunities and blessings and everything, but when you're in that fear state, you just cannot see it, and you feel so alone.
Yeah, so getting out of the fear is your job. So there's so many things in terms you can do in terms of calming your brain. Firstly, remind yourself of the safe. Certainly take action. Like if you've got to, sort out your finances or whatever, take action. Don't sit there and do that. But it's about how can I turn my fear down? Because like I said, the brain doesn't work when you're in fear. If you want to come up with solutions, you've actually got to get out of fear. So meditation, I've been drinking a lot of herbal relaxing teas, drop the caffeine, drop the stimulants, drop the stimulating media, and just try and calm the whole system down.
Calm it all down and take action from now and not be in the frenzy of it all. I think that's all of that calming brings you down to what action can I take from here in this moment. Yeah.
Coming back to the soul truth concept, you can't hear your truth in stress.
Yeah.
Like when you're in acute stress, you actually have to get yourself centered and calm and connected to something, whether that's the earth or God or your soul, to feel that clarity. Clarity only comes from there. It does. I mean, there's times when I've been highly stressed where a bolt of clarity has come. Like I'm done with this. That sort of clarity. You can still get clarity with highly stress. Don't get me wrong, because sometimes it becomes so clear and strong.
Yeah.
But for many people, in terms of what new job can I do? What career should I go to? That takes some contemplation and some quiet quite often.
Yeah, so absolutely.
And
And if they're in the mindset of I'm not going to get another job, and they're in that fear, reach out and get some help and ask to talk to somebody or talk to somebody else in the same situation to find a solution.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is, where there's loss, inevitably there's growth. I mean, I've been speaking to people whose businesses have gone through the roof during COVID-19. The guy that came to look at my trip was like, I've never been this busy. Because, if people are sitting around and they're bored and they're kind of... So there are still jobs and opportunities available, and it can be really hard to see that when you've had a loss.
Absolutely.
And there'll be lots more losses to come, I kind of feel, unfortunately.
There will be lots more.
Who knows?
But also lots more opportunity too. So it's really keep positive and and do that meditation and yeah. And if people go to your website, they can, there's links there for Leigh's book on the website. Download her book or buy the book and use the meditation from there as well. And I'm sure if they connect with you through your Facebook page, you've got things there that they can, really use to inspire some peace as well.
Well, anybody who watches this and who wants the meditation that's in the book but doesn't want to buy the book, just PM me and I'll send you a link to the meditation. It's also available on Kindle, the book, so that's a cheaper way to get it if people like reading on that medium. Sometimes I buy things on Kindle and then I really like that book and then I order the hardcover. But I sell the hardcover direct, so you can get that. The best way to get that is direct from me because that's the cheapest price you'll get. But the Kindle is there.
Yeah, so they can contact you through the website, or they can also I'll put your Facebook link up here in the comments when we finish, and they can connect you through there too.
Yeah, so I have a business page, but also just my personal page. I'll make it public again. I shut it down for a bit. I had a few trolls there for a bit. I'm just going to there in social media at the moment. And a lot of
there's been, I've heard of a few of my friends have said that actually. They're like, oh, I just had to shut everything down because I just didn't have the time to police the whole thing.
It's the energy. I guess the time and energy, and I think I wanted to mention, Trish, we didn't mention this, but I wanted to mention that some people are more highly sensitive to others and more empathic to others at this time. So even though they mightn't be personally traumatized, they might be experiencing what we call vicarious trauma, which is just, if friends or family are experiencing losses or traumas that they can be, or just even like a collective trauma of tuning into what's happening, whether that's the deaths from the coronavirus or the loss of freedom. It doesn't really matter what upsets you.
Yes.
So a lot of what the work I do is with highly sensitive people and empaths on tools on just how to manage that gift that is also a challenge. For me, my sensitivity is my greatest gift, but it is.
Yeah. You've got to be in touch with it though, don't you? Because for many years, until I understood all of that, I carried around a lot of stuff that I was trying to figure out, why am I feeling that way, and it wasn't even mine. So I'd say there's a lot of people suffering from that also, that trauma of just everything that's going on around them with other people.
Feeling the swirling of emotions that's happening in the world at the moment, and by that. And there's an aspect of that that's awesome in that we're compassionate human beings, but there's an aspect of that that's not self-loving if you're carrying the burdens of everyone.
No. We all need to be kinder to ourselves and everybody else and the rest of the world, don't we?
Yep.
We all need more kindness. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been really amazing, and I'm sure you've helped people just with different things that you've said, and I'm sure people are going to have some aha moments, but they can certainly reach out to you if they're really needing some deeper work, either with body trauma or emotional trauma.
Direction or just whatever blocks, because I guess like you work on plus intuitive levels, and for me my goal is to work on every level of person, which is a big ask of myself. That's my intention about people. So from that perspective, if people can reach out. I do one-to-one sessions.
Yep.
A lot of them on Zoom, but I live on the Sunshine Coast, so people want face-to-face, and I have a home office.
Yep.
And I also do some small group women's circles. I've got another one coming up, so if people are curious about that, they can message me. And they're quite tool-based. Like I deliver a tool with your meditation. I deliver a tool, and then we share. And that's a really important part of the group for the people that are at this point.
Oh, wonderful. You might like to pop some information in the comments when we finish up about that, because there's probably people who will be watching tonight or on the replay who'll be interested in those women's circles. So, yeah.
Thanks so much.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you so much, Leigh. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Please connect with Leigh. And I will see you next week on Trish Rock TV. Bye for now.
Thanks, Trish. Bye, everyone.